All right. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee of Fallbrook Regional Healthcare District. And are there any public comments or anybody waiting to listen to us?
No, sir. No one online.
All right. Then I'll pass it on. Take a look at the documents. And it's one of the documents said essentially July to June, but not just 1 month. Well, it was the month that compared with the annual amount. Did I misread that?
So if you're looking at the balance sheet, it does the comparison to the month before.
I was looking actually at the P&L, P&L compared to budget. Yeah.
Well, and it's gonna only be year to date, so it's still gonna be 1 month to 1 month. It's not going, because we're not gonna go back into the last fiscal year.
I understand that.
Okay.
So let me find exactly what I'm seeing to see if I've got that wrong. So I'm on, and if we can, page 6. How's that?
Yep.
All right. And so we got and this is July 25 to June 26, right?
Correct.
And so our budget, which would be
The total year to date budget.
yeah, so it's 39,000 actual versus 2.9 million, right?
For the year, yes.
Yeah. Well, why don't we have a budget for July?
Because if you go back to report number 2 or page 4,
Yeah.
that's just do you want to see a month to month budget variance?
Does it make sense to do a actual versus the entire year?
At the first couple of months, not really, because it's not that helpful,
Well, I don't disagree with that.
but
So
like,
was the plan then in September to do actual versus September budget?
I think we have, I don't recall this being a change.
No.
This is how we typically.
It's been like that.
But how meaningful is it then if we're taking a look at a month versus the entire year's budget? How does that help?
Well, in the first month, there's not enough data points to see it. I get that.
Yeah.
But looking at it month, actual to month budget is also not that helpful in that you see variances at that very microscopic level.
I understand that.
Okay.
But even then, so we could do this same thing on actual for whatever for July, August, and September to budget year to date.
Quarterly reports.
Yeah. Why don't I tell you what? Let me write it down.
Okay.
So
Yeah, let me know what you're looking for. We can
Yeah.
produce any report
I know you
you
can.
want, so.
Quarterly actual to budget.
I mean, that would be probably more helpful. The month to month is tough because we may budget it in 1 month and then it gets booked in the next. And if you're only looking at that 1 month, it looks, oh, we're over, we're under. And the next month it looks the opposite, but quarterly, they usually are going to balance out.
Yeah.
But I mean, let us know what you prefer.
Yeah. I was just, after what? Back 14 months, it just seemed as though we had in the past looked at a month to a budget and then maybe then year to date. But let me do that. Tell you what I think is
We've done different versions over the 6 years I've been here now, depending who the treasurer is.
Right.
So it really depends on what data point you're looking for.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
No problem.
Let me turn it over to you in terms of what do you see that is interesting and we should know?
When it comes to the first month of the fiscal year, I don't usually have anything.
That's what I.
that I can identify.
I concluded that as well, but I
Yes.
wanted to make sure that if I did miss something that was important.
I generally don't have anything. If anything, I would point over to the compliance report, which is always a thing of beauty. Thank you, Susan. Just to,
Even though it's not called the compliance report.
well, we call it the compliance report because it puts us in compliance with section 536.
Hate to be contentious here.
You want me to write compliance report?
Yeah, you know what? Why don't we take from that, you can take out the logo and that mission statement that's up at the top.
Okay,
And let's just title that our compliance report, and or if you want to call it the investment compliance report, if we want to be
I like that.
truly specific.
Me too.
So if you will
Mhm.
note on the agenda, we'll
Mhm.
call that one the investment compliance.
We're talking about page 10, right?
We are.
That would be.
Sorry, ladies, this set on the PDF has page numbers. I don't think yours has
Mine
page
doesn't.
numbers. Yeah,
But I didn't get mine off the
that's what.
portal.
Yeah, so sorry about that. So the interesting part just basically comes from a little bit of what we saw at CSDA when the finance folks were talking.
Mhm.
This continuation of instability in the investment market. Right now, it's still continuing to work on our behalf for the most part. You'll see that Leaf, CalTrust, both the accounts, and Class are still providing us a solid yield. All of them essentially said the same thing, like, well, we'll see. No one was willing to make any hard and fast prognostications, which I think is pretty standard for finance folks. They're not about to stick their necks out. So we're still gaining quite a bit on these investments. But just to know that we can expect this is what we should be looking at for future strategic planning of where investment funds will eventually be spent. Because this is the one-time pool of money that was invested from the sale of the hospital building. So we're still gaining on that, and we've been fortunate since 2017 when the hospital property was sold and this account really received its largest amount of funds. Those funds have been gaining considerably since then, but there's an expectation at some point we're going to see this reverse back to a more traditional yield. That's kind of what I got from finance things. Have you seen anything different from the finance stuff you're?
No, but what did they indicate as a traditional yield then?
Just down, it depended. I mean, if you say traditional back to, 2007, 8, after the Great Recession, when everything set to zero, that's not really traditional. Before then you had growth. So there's just been too much unusual behavior.
I was wondering which one of the ones you were listening to, because you know how we had looked at our specific investments, especially for CalTrust Media, and it had set at 2.9, I think, for many, many years. So I was wondering if that's what they consider traditional.
I think that's what they were talking about. They referenced Leif. They didn't have a speaker from Leif.
Okay.
California Class spoke on a different level. I mostly kind of heard, I guess it wasn't a representative from CalTrust, but doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They basically all said the same thing. These 4 and 5% are high for these kinds of very secure, stable investment tools.
The last session I attended was a representative from California Class.
Oh, yeah.
And it caused me to wonder why don't we take everything that's in Lake and put it in the California class?
Well, that is a very good question.
It's not one we can answer today, but I think that's something we ought to think about.
We could, I think, part of our investment policy requires that we have some distribution across the fund, so that there's no, LAIF is our smallest pool, obviously now. California class, when we got into it, the treasurer at the time was reticent to put too much money into it. But that could be rebalanced, I guess you could say.
And they have two funds, right?
California class, we just have the one fund.
But they have.
It's Cal Trust that we have the two.
Well, let's think about the
Lakeville-
pros and cons.
It's not something you necessarily want to empty out. When I was talking to one of the investment guys for one of the cities, he was actually suggesting that we put a larger portion of our CalTrust medium into LAIF. I did not discuss with him why we don't put more into LAIF. I mean, over the years, and this is something I was just mentioning to Susan, I think we've used that fund to reimburse ourselves for the operating expense, all these things. So we don't traditionally use it to invest. But he was mentioning, that would be a great tool to hedge against what we've been doing with both class and CalTrust liquidity. He goes, you guys are putting quite a bit in there for the small funds you guys have. Maybe you put some in LAIF over time. And I just said, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I can tell you why I don't put anything in LAIF, but it was a suggestion that we put a little bit more into LAIF to kind of offset when the market will change on the liquidity for both class and CalTrust liquid.
That makes a lot of sense.
Correct. And taking it from the CalTrust medium, which is the fattest of the investment account line items, would be the direction we would go, from medium to medium. So you're not losing really anything from a shorter term to a shorter term.
Yeah.
Right? Is that echoing?
He was saying, I mean, they were going over a variety of different tools that we don't use them, and so he said most of those that, city managers use, those are benchmarked against LAIF. LAIF is one of the most stable ones. And so that's why he was suggesting, if we do have it, why don't you guys use it more?
Yeah.
Because
And again, the history is because LAIF was identified as the account to use for the redevelopment of the wellness center. That's really where the funds get pulled from.
Yeah.
Which is why you see the most activity in that account historically.
The discussion, thank you. All right, so
That was really the only thing I wanted to continue to point out. Everything else is essentially the same.
Yeah.
The only thing, since we're a little bit there, I'll go to report 6. Which I guess is page 17.
Get that in.
Yeah, so it's the 2 credit card statements.
Got it.
We just recently, obviously, came back from the CSDA annual meeting in which both Jennifer and Howard, Teresa and myself went to. With the new board makeup, we have more willingness of board members to attend these trainings, which is important. Our practice has always been that board members make all of their own travel everythings. Your own reservations at the hotel, the flights, everything, and that we reimburse. The challenge with that is, if you don't do it quickly, what happens is people get put to different hotels and things are challenged. So what I would like to move over into a practice level, and I think this will be more fair for all board members who come from lots of different economic backgrounds, is to raise our credit card limits, and we have an opportunity to have essentially, I don't want to call them ghost credit cards. What are they?
I forget what they are called, but.
What they're called, but basically it's like a short-term credit card. So we can, Judith generally can control the limits on those cards, and we use those for staff things. This would allow you and Howard and whomever else to go. All we have to do is say, okay, by this date, you have to tell me you're going. At which point Raquel can book all of our hotel rooms for us. We'll have your credit card, our account, blah, 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 so that when you get there, your card issued by the district can be used to secure those. That way, all of our team is there at once. The only thing I would still say, you're gonna make your own hotel or your own flight reservations because everybody likes to fly differently, right? But we could still have a district card with an amount to manage for those things. So in order to make that feasible, we're going to need to increase the credit limit on the 5-star credit card. Now, for a point of context, Sally, this is really more for you. Historically, when I got here 6 years ago, the district had not had a credit card. We had a card that was kind of secured for the previous CEO, but it wasn't well integrated into the district financials. We've obviously since changed that. We have tremendous internal control and oversight of those. Obviously, you see the statements in the packet, so there can be no concern that the cards are being used improperly. So by increasing this limit, we're not increasing our risk at all. But I want to make sure that the finance is comfortable increasing that limit. That, and so much of business today is done with electronic software platforms. All of those, pretty much, I don't think anybody does paper check anymore. Does anybody even ACH?
Everybody meaning who?
All the softwares?
Oh,
think
no. All of
every-
our software is that.
All of it is put via credit card, which means that there are times of the year when Judith will be like, nobody use the credit card because we're gonna max out because Microsoft might hit at the same time as Adobe, which might hit at the same time as Streamline. And again, because our balance, our credit limit is low, it becomes challenging. So I think what we'll do is we'll go back, look at what our current limits are. And then next month, I think I want to come back to you and say, I'd like just your awareness, permission to bump this limit up to, and it'll seem like a high limit. We don't anticipate ever really hitting it, but it gives us the place so that when we are at conference, or if these softwares all hit at the same time, we're not running into that same concern.
And we could also use it for the fees or the,
CSDA,
Yeah, registration.
registrations, exactly.
Is
Yeah.
there, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a downside. Is there a downside?
No, it's just the history of the cards here. It took a while for the district to kind of bring some of the practices more current. And it took a while for things to get comfortable. And then the board has changed and we just haven't caught up with that. So part of what we've been doing this year is trying to bring our systems more online to more current practice. And the credit limit is part of that. So I didn't want to just start pumping it up without having that discussion, at least in this committee.
but it makes a lot of sense.
Administratively, it makes it a lot easier.
A lot.
A lot easier.
All about.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear.
More streamlined.
Yeah. And you'll see, I mean, we don't have challenges with rogue cards and rogue fees. I mean, it's managed pretty well. Judith has done a great job working with Jess as we're adapting Jess's role to really track down to make sure receipts are matching. Again, one of those things that can be incredibly time sucking, but incredibly important. So we're looking at how we're managing our bookkeeping and research, receipt tracking. You may see coming forward some readjustment to administrative roles and tasks and positions as we grow up. It's time to make sure a lot of these systems are in place. We are anticipating more complexity to the district's operations. Besides all the additional programming at the wellness center and invoicing and such that comes out of that, should new partnerships, potential clinical partnerships coming on, we need to make sure that we have a little bit more touch to that. So Just, we're working on what that's gonna look like. As soon as we have that more outlined, we'll bring it obviously to the board. But as finance, you're often the gateway to that. So I wanted to just kind of clue you in on some of the things that we're working on for that. That's good.
Sounds good.
All right. Does that give you enough history as well? Okay.
Anything else?
On the reports, I don't have anything else.
We do have attachments about the reserves, but we discussed that in finance committee and the board. Is there any?
No, just
We had to talk about.
again, we wanted to put back in that copy of what was there, what was redlined, and then what we discussed. So you'll see that back at the board. And you'll have to forgive me, the copies of the reserve policy got a little bit messed up because unfortunately I had to put the packet together. Cause we gave Raquel Friday off purposely, but unfortunately getting the financial reports was late. And instead of making her work when she was off, I tried to put it together, which is always a good example of what you shouldn't let me do.
I didn't want to do it.
She was like, please let me work. I'm like, nope, I got it.
It points
So-
out the expertise of Raquel.
Oh, man.
It points out limitations of things. So, do I have that final?
I think you did, yes.
It was
this one.
Nope, that's the old one. Old.
That's it, that's the last one.
Okay, then go to the front. Yeah, see,
That
I
was
didn't,
the
I didn't get
beginning.
the right one in there.
Okay.
So it's just basically, I made it pretty in our format and then I put the amounts that we basically discussed. So you'll see it you'll see the correct one at the board meeting.
Yeah.
But again, yes, we did discuss it. I was just trying to bring forward the clean version to you, which I copied on.
I just want to make sure that there wasn't something else we should.
No, nothing new in it. Again, the new reserve, the way it's structured, it's much more plain language. It takes it out of the old legal person's language. I did run it by Alex. He had no concerns. He's like, that's not an issue. But it does set a reserve policy that we would look at annually when we look at the budget. And the reserve policy would be tied to our capital improvement budget, what we expect that we're going to spend or entangled in spending through contracts. A certain degree that is saved for rainy day emergency. And then just some basic operating amount as well. And again, those will always be tied to budget so that they're much more realistic instead of the old version, which was 18 months, 12 months, which isn't really helpful.
Right.
So. But you'll see that final version at the board meeting.
Sally, do you have any things that you'd like to discuss at this time?
No.
Rachel, Susan,
Judith.
Rita. Well, I will give you that half hour back and we will adjourn. And unless I call for a pre-meeting, we won't. Or if Sally says, hey, I've looked at this stuff, we need to. So either one, or if you want. Tell me and I'll.
I mean, we generally all look at it, so I don't.
It's more for us.
Yeah, it's really designed for you, and you can end that if you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you at school